Angel Reese had a series of tweets on X. We still call them tweets, don't we? I still call them tweets. On X about, first of all, let's begin with the firing of Teresa Witherspoon, who was the coach for one season, Angel Reese's rookie year, with the Chicago Sky here in town. They went 13-27. They went 3-13 after the Olympic break, so it was not a successful year. We heard a lot about Angel Reese, but the Chicago Sky did not perform very well, and Teresa Witherspoon has been relieved of her duties. Angel Reese went to Twitter to comment on this, saying that she was heartbroken that her coach had been fired and that she was the only person who believed in her and trusted her, going on to say that a lot of people don't know what it's like to be a black woman in sports and nobody believes in you, and basically just giving some love to her first professional coach who is now out of a job. Angel then continued with at least a couple of subsequent tweets saying, for one thing, I've never in my life had privilege, but I definitely know the power that I have through my platform. This didn't come overnight. I grew that on my own, capital O-W-N. And with that being said, I'll continue to use my voice in the right way and say what's right, even though it has backfired on me to be this, air quotes, villain. And she goes on to say, I won't stop. Well, look, you have built a brand on your own to an extent, but let's be real, Caitlin Clark has been watering the flowers in your garden. Nobody knows who you are to this extent if there's no Caitlin Clark, and I know that that doesn't sit well with Angel Reese, but it's the truth. Angel Reese going on to criticize the media, saying that the media has created a narrative that she's a villain, and that narrative has brought out hate and animus directed at her in very ugly ways. And I have no doubt that that is true. I know that there have been ugly, terrible things, some of them racially charged, that have been directed at Angel Reese and other players. And I absolutely condemn every single bit of it. There is no room in American life for racism, and there is no room in sports for that kind of attitude. It's terrible, and I know just from my own personal life the nasty things that strangers can say to you that cause you to back up. I'm over 50 years old, and I have strangers say things about me online that cause me to pause and say, gee, did I piss in your Cheerios? What the fuck? So Angel Reese is getting that at a much higher level than me, I would think, given what we've seen over the past couple of years in women's basketball and how much it has risen in the stature of the American sports landscape. So I have sympathy for Angel Reese in terms of some of this ugliness that has been directed at her, but I think blaming the media for all of it is a little bit disingenuous, because Angel Reese became a villain because of the way she acted on the court. The pointing at the ring finger after LSU beat Iowa last year, when Kennedy Carter cheap shotted Caitlin Clark. And look, I realize we're at a point where anytime Caitlin Clark hits the floor, everybody gets freaked out, and many people think that, oh my gosh, that was a deliberate act. And we've seen the Dejanay Carrington controversy just this week. But the Kennedy Carter play was clearly out of bounds. As Caitlin herself said, it wasn't a basketball play. And Angel Reese popped up like she was a fucking member of Cobra Kai and seemed excited when that happened. You can't be the get him a body bag, yeah, kid, and then on the other hand, cry foul and say that you have been misconstrued and you're misunderstood and you're a victim. You can't be the villain and the victim. It just doesn't work that way. And the truth of the matter is that Angel Reese became villainized because of the way that she acted. Bill Laimbeer might have been and might be a great father, a great husband, a great grandparent, a great friend. I don't know. I don't judge Bill Laimbeer off the court. I've said many times, Angel Reese is the Bill Laimbeer of the WNBA. She's being treated like a bigger star than that, but that's functionally the best example I have, with Caitlin Clark being Michael Jordan. Bill Laimbeer was disliked for the way he played basketball and the way that he conducted himself during games. And Angel Reese, to the extent that she is an air quotes villain, and there have been times that it seems like she's accepted this role, that she's embraced this role. It's almost like she can't make up her own mind whether she likes being the villain or not. Depends on the day, apparently. Bill Laimbeer was villainized for what he did on the court. The cheap shot fouls, his smirking shit face that he would make. He was disliked for that reason. Now, there's always going to be 5 or 10% of batshit people in society that are going to take anything too far. And I know that there are some of those people who have been directing hatred towards Angel Reese. And for that, I have genuine sympathy for her, and there should be no tolerance for that kind of stuff. But don't sit here and pretend that you don't know why you have taken on the reputation of a villain. And the racial aspect of it, hey, look, Michael Jordan was the black guy, everybody loved him. Bill Laimbeer was the white guy, everybody hated him. It wasn't racial, it was about the persona. Caitlin Clark is perceived as a humble, nice young woman. And I think that that is predominantly, are there some people who like her because she's white? I'm sure there are. But Caitlin Clark is liked for the most part because we see her as a humble, likable person. And we have seen Angel Reese present herself as a smug person who throws shade and exhibits poor sportsmanship. That's the issue. Christian Laettner, I thought, hey, Caitlin Clark should have been on the women's Olympic team. I still believe that. I think that's already been validated with what we've seen her do since the Olympics were over. She should have been there for a variety of reasons. Because she's one of the 12 best players, and because she's far and away the most marketable player. She could have done a lot more good for the game even than she's already done. She should have fucking been there. Well, I remember the Dream Team in 1992, and who's the one person, who's the turd in the punch bowl on the 1992 Dream Team? Yeah, that's right. It was Christian Laettner. Because they were going to take one college kid. And Christian Laettner had won back-to-back championships at Duke. He had just made the shot that broke my heart and broke the heart of the entire state of Kentucky in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania at the Spectrum. But nobody really wanted to see him, at least outside of Raleigh, or Durham rather, wanted to see him on that team because guess who we all wanted? We wanted to see Shaq. A whole lot of us, including myself, we wanted Shaquille O'Neal on that team. And why did we want Shaquille on that team? Christian Laettner had the better college career. It's easy to maybe forget that in Shaq's legacy. But Shaq didn't accomplish nearly as much in college. He was more dominant. He didn't have as good of teammates, yada, yada, all that. But we wanted Shaq because we liked Shaq and we thought that Christian Laettner was a douche. Christian Laettner, the white guy, Shaquille O'Neal, the black guy, we wanted the guy that we liked. So the racial element of this that has been injected into it in social media world, it's unfucking fortunate. And as I say, there's no room for it. There's no room for it at all. But if we can back away from that noise, the root reason that people have been against Angel Reese is because of her own behavior. And so she needs to make up her mind. This is a young woman, 22 years old. Difficult situation to be in, as I said. She's young. When I was 22, I didn't know my ass from my elbows. If I had been in the public eye every day, there's no telling what regrettable things I might have said or done. I think that's true for probably the large majority of us. So she is in a storm, and she's young and she's finding her way. And I think that she does deserve a certain amount of latitude when she's processing her feelings. I have some sympathy, but she's also got to realize the flip side of this media narrative is it's made her a lot of money. She wasn't complaining about the media when she was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. I bet that she's not complaining that the media has boosted her marketability and her earning power. So Angel Reese is going to kind of have to figure this out. But Angel, if you don't want to be a villain, the simplest way to accomplish that is to look in the mirror, understand your own contribution to the narrative, and make some changes. And if you do that, you're here in Chicago, I'm very happy. I would be very happy to become a fan of yours, but you have to make the changes that would allow for that to happen. And complaining about the fans and complaining about the media is just going to drive people further in the other direction. With that said, I bring in the international streaming star from Nashville, Tennessee, Ronnie T-Shirts. Ronnie, you said just yesterday you thought that we were at least going to get a weekend break from this, but here we are leading the show with it 24 hours later, bud.
Dude, this whole WNBA thing was not in the contract I signed in August. Like, this is just... Man.
You didn't work that out with Gary?
I did.
I thought for sure you would have had that conversation.
I can promise you there's going to be an addendum to the next agreement about the number of times that I have to talk about the WNBA. I don't know. My biggest takeaway, Ricky, is I'm so sick and tired of race being interjected into absolutely everything, because I totally agree with you, man. I've spent my entire life either liking somebody because they're likable or disliking somebody because they're unlikable or an asshole. Like, I mean, I 100% see color. I just don't care. And I really think that most people feel the same way that we do. Like, I like people that I like. I mean, dude, look at your little figurine right there. Like, one of the sweetest. I mean, his nickname was Sweetness because of how good he was at football, but he was a sweet man. Like he was just a good, like, he just seemed like a good dude publicly. Again, privately, personally, I don't know, but I'm talking about his public persona. He's just a sweet man. You talked about Christian Laettner. I mean, I hated Duke forever, right? Grayson Allen, all the other just pompous, as you said, douchey white guys, right? And then about
JJ Redick, I didn't like JJ Redick. I mean, I like him a little better now.
I actually like JJ now.
But I do too now. But at the time, he represented that to me.
So check this out. This is how racist I am. Duke that I hate and just hated all these guys. I started watching every single Duke game when Zion Williamson was there, because he was a joy to watch. In every interview after he was just such a likable kid. And I'm like, okay, I'm all in. I'm watching every Duke game because I love this kid. I love watching him play. I love his personality. I loved the kid. And so it's such an easy, lazy out to just claim racism on everything. No, I don't like you because you're an idiot. It has nothing to do with your skin color or your religion or your sexual preference or where you're from. Like, it has nothing to do with that. It's you're an asshole and I don't like you. That's it. And I'm just so
I think
tired
that's the
of it,
biggest
Ricky.
part. I think that's the biggest part of the picture. I do acknowledge, though, that there are
some people
minority
that are
of people
racist
out there
idiots,
that
yes.
are doing that. Yeah. And I'm sure she's heard a lot of that. As I said, if I've got haters, how many haters must she have? And how much dumb shit must she be hearing? And other WNBA players. I mean, I do want to acknowledge that I'm sure they have heard a lot of nasty shit. And so that's real, and there's no room for that. But I think that for the vast majority of fans, that is not by any means the main reason that they feel the way that they do about any particular player. Caitlin Clark is popular. Has her whiteness hurt her popularity? Certainly not. It didn't hurt Larry Bird's either, if we're just going to sit here and be completely honest, right? But there's a million white athletes in every sport that nobody gives a flying fuck about. There's been white women in the WNBA for the last 30 years and nobody gave a shit. Diana Taurasi, nobody gives a fuck. Okay? Caitlin Clark is popular because she's an unbelievable player, and then that is enhanced by the fact that she seems like a very humble, likable human being on top of it. And if you are outstanding at your sport and you come off as a person that somebody would enjoy meeting or being around, well, that's a recipe that has worked for popularity from the beginning of time, and it has worked in America regardless of your race, religion. Who was the most popular athlete in the world in the 1970s, Ron? It was Muhammad Ali, I would argue.
Yeah.
They used to say, well, with you, it was O.J. Simpson. It was Muhammad Ali, who was a black Muslim. I always say I'm a white kid from Kentucky, raised by a Baptist mother, and my childhood hero, and I didn't have a father. My father died when I was 5 years old. So I looked up to these athletes that I admired hard. I did, looking back at it now. I looked up to them hard. And my biggest hero was Muhammad Ali, a black Muslim. And it didn't matter to me. My mother taught me at a very young age, what matters is your character. That's all that matters. Now, not everybody in this country is blessed with that quality of parenting, right? And there are people out there. And racism it's not inherited, but it's passed down from generation to generation. People learn to be racist. People aren't born racist. They learn it. I was lucky enough to grow up in a household where I was taught that didn't matter. And I passed that down to my kids. There are people out there who are fucking nasty, and I'm sure Angel Reese has heard from them. But it doesn't change the fact. Don't be under the misapprehension, Angel Reese, that you are disliked primarily for that. That is just the slim number of crazies and not good people out there in the world who are inclined to think that way. You could get 80-90% of the people that don't like you to change their opinion simply by modifying behavior, I would argue.
Agree. Totally agree. And I'll tell you what, Ricky, the one thing that, you have to do, I have to do, everybody has to do is if you see racism, like, you got to say something to those people. And I promise you, if somebody at any sporting event is yelling out something racist from the stands, they are going to be attacked. And maybe not physically attacked, but they're going to be attacked by the overwhelming majority of the people around them. So, there's the saying that, one of the first sayings I ever remember is, one bad apple spoils the whole bunch. And it's true. There are racist, moronic idiots out there, but they're not the norm. And if they do it, they get attacked immediately by the people around them. And all I'd say to Angel Reese is, yeah, it has to suck to hear that stuff, but you just have to let it go, because that is not how most people are. And you are right. Modification of your character and your personality. I mean, it's not even your character. I'm sure she probably has a great character. It's not up to me to judge that. I can judge her personality. I just think about things that I find likable. At the end of Caitlin's career at Iowa, Travis Scott went to one of her games, and you know who Travis Scott is, the rapper. And
yes,
and after the game, he wanted to get a picture with Caitlin, and she was like, "You're going to take a picture with me and my entire team." And when I see stuff like that, man, that just makes me like somebody. And it didn't matter that Caitlin was white doing that. I was looking at, wow, this is somebody that is arguably the most famous female athlete on the planet at that moment. And her first thought was, don't leave my teammates out of this. And that appeals to me.
That's why people like her. On top of the ability, if she was just a great player and she came off as, oh God, well, she's full of herself. Oh geez, I don't think I really like her. Her popularity wouldn't be half of what it is. It's the whole package. Mm-hmm. It's the ability combined with the personality that creates phenomenons in our society, and she is a phenomenon. And Angel Reese is a very, very good player, a young woman, 22 years old. There is time for her to mature and grow and perhaps be a very popular player later in her career. At age 22, we're just at the start of the script. And so it's in her power. And I think taking responsibility rather than projecting the responsibility onto the media would be a good place for her to start. Ronnie, let's go start looking at the poll of the day. As you know, it's Friday, and Friday means that it's championship edition of the poll of the day over at Super 70 Sports on X, where we take the winners from Monday through Thursday and we pit them together to see what is the best thing that I ask people about. Ron, here are your 4 candidates. This week, we do have 2 food items. Last week, I think we didn't have a food item make it to Friday, but this week we've got a couple of favorites. We've got a person, and we've got an underrated driving vibe. What do you think here? First of all, who do you pick? What do you pick? And what do you think's going to win?
Well, what we need to do is we just need to try to guess what number 2 is going to be, because brisket will win in an absolute landslide.
Yeah,
and that's what I picked too.
I'm afraid you're correct about that.
I'll sit at stoplights the rest of my life on the way to get good brisket. So there's just no question there.
Nobody wants to hit 10 green lights in a row on their way to some Subway.
Second place, I think, is going to be, as much as I would go the green light for me, but if I'm guessing based on your audience, it's going to go Gordon Lightfoot's number 2.
All right, well, let's go ahead and tee it up. Producer Tim, searching his soul. Producer Tim learns something about himself every time that he fills one of these out. He's going to take the matzo sticks as the appetizer. And as you predicted, brisket well on the way, and good call, Gordon Lightfoot. Gordon Lightfoot in second place. I've got a bigger Gordon Lightfoot audience than a James Taylor audience, I think. Do you think James Taylor, did he just run into a powerhouse with brisket? Was that the problem?
No, I told you, he's just not as popular as you think he is. My
audience prefers Gordon Lightfoot.
I have a question, and so I have a question for Tim, and so he can answer through you. Dude, are you serious?
So now now I'm just the middleman on your conversations with Tim.
I don't have an earpiece yet. You haven't decided
Go
if
ahead.
I'm worthy of an earpiece.
I'm right here.
So Tim, you've got brisket sitting there, and then you've got mozzarella sticks sitting there, and you're only allowed to eat one. You're going to choose mozzarella sticks? I call bullshit.
In the 80s? Is that your reasoning, Tim?
What?
Okay, he said Super 70s is a retro brand. He's going retro. Back in the 80s, he would have been all about the mozzarella sticks.
And
it's an unsatisfying answer, isn't it, Ron?
I can't.
He also says brisket's not a Northeast thing. Tim says it's not. He doesn't live in brisket territory.
That's a more acceptable. That's a more acceptable reason than going with the 80s. Tim, you and I are going to chat after the show. I'm gonna have you to Nashville. I'm disappointed that
the good green light streak didn't do a little better. Yeah, I had hopes. All right. Oh yeah. By the way, a little tease here for America. Producer Tim, he's going to make his own on-camera debut next week.
Nice.
So there's a little something for us to all get excited. America's going to fall in love with this motherfucker.
Yeah.
America's going to fall in love with this motherfucker as I have. He's just a delightful human being. Ron, let's talk about Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan, man, look, I haven't railed about it too much here lately on the show, but I'm going to get back up on my First Amendment free speech soapbox because Joe Rogan has something like 8 million views on a Twitter clip of him talking about free speech and particularly how it relates to this election and what the stakes might be in terms of how a potential Harris-Walz administration is going to look upon that particular subject that is so near and dear to my heart. Let's take a look at Joe Rogan.
The more we have platforms where that stuff is just free, where you can just say whatever you want, say whatever you think about anything, which really X and Rumble are the only places that I know of that you could really do that right now. If you don't think it turns around if Kamala Harris gets into office, I think they clamp down more. I think the same stuff that they were trying to do with Twitter, they'll try to do with something else and with other things. They've already openly discussed it. You know, she's openly discussed that the same rules have to apply to Facebook, they have to apply to Twitter, and that Elon Musk could lose his privileges. And, like, there's so many wild things that they're saying. Tim Walz said that the First Amendment doesn't apply to misinformation or hate speech. Okay, well, it certainly does. It does. You know, sometimes people say things wrong. And the goal of the First Amendment is you say something wrong, and then this guy who's an expert says the right thing.
Yeah.
You know, and then you correct.
I've said it many times. We need to live, if we want to have a thriving democracy, we need to live in a marketplace of ideas. Everybody has the ability in a free society to state their opinions, say what they think, throw out the good ideas, the bad ideas, the stupid ideas, the offensive ideas. They may be hateful ideas, and there's going to be a lot of bad information out there. Some of it being distributed on purpose, and some of it being distributed well-intentioned, but it just so happens to be wrong. We got to have a mix of all of that if we really want to take a bite of the apple here and have a true democratic republic. Simple as that. It's simple as that. And Tim Walz, I want to play real quickly, Ron, before I get your thoughts. The comments that Tim Walz made not long ago that I've played on this show before that Joe Rogan was referencing about there being no guarantee to free speech. Let's take a look at what Tim Walz himself said.
I think we need to push back on this. There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy.
As Joe Rogan said, yes, there is, asshole. Yes, there is. There is. Those are the things that should be protected the most, in fact, is the unpopular speech. The popular speech doesn't need any help. It's the unpopular speech that they're going to come for. And that guy right there that you just saw has said his willingness right there on television to God and the entire world that he has an appetite for restricting speech. There's no right, no guarantee to free speech, he says, if it's misinformation or hate speech. Yeah, there is. In a free society, you're free to be an asshole. Nobody likes assholes, but you're free to be one. You're free to say what you think, even if you're stupidly, obnoxiously, despicably wrong in your opinion. And that right there disqualifies Tim Walz, in my opinion, from being vice president of the United States, or God forbid, holding an office even higher than that, Ronnie.
I've said it once, I'll say it again, Ricky. The market always speaks. It speaks with everything. It speaks with thoughts and ideas. It speaks with commerce. The market always speaks. So you are correct. I want everybody to say exactly what they think, no matter how hateful or hurtful that other people might think it is, for the sole purpose of it exposes who you are. And now I know what I'm dealing with. I always say, my family, both sides, has a lot of Jewish on it, and if somebody in my neighborhood wants to put up a swastika flag, I don't give a fuck. Like, honestly, it's better for me because now I know where the anti-Semite lives, because before they put it up, I didn't know where they lived. And I can tell you, if somebody did that in my neighborhood, there would be a massive backlash because, as I said, the market speaks. It always speaks. And then there are sometimes I have ideas and thoughts about how certain things can be, and somebody tells me, you know what, you're wrong, and here's why. And then I think about it and I process it, and I'm like, you know what? I have been thinking about this the wrong way the whole time because I never really thought about that angle. So I want to hear things that I don't agree with. It makes you a better person. It makes you grow.
Ron, and let's not forget what I consider to be the main problem with this is who decides what's misinformation and who decides what's hate speech.
Well, it's clear, Ricky. Because they want to be the ones. They want to be the ones who do it. Like that's their
correct.
whole MO right now.
Correct. They are going to decide what is hateful and what is not. And if you happen to be, look, I'm a reasonable first of all, I think I'm smarter than Tim Walz.
Well, that's easy.
Okay. I'm as educated as Tim Walz. I don't know what his education is. I got a master's degree and I taught college for 21 years. I'll put my intellect up against Tim Walz's any day. We'll take a fucking IQ test. You put us through the paces. I believe that I'm a smarter man than Tim Walz. Who is he to fucking tell me what is hateful and what is misinformation? You're not qualified, Timmy, and neither is Kamala, and neither is anybody else. I'd say it to anyone. You're not qualified to tell me, a person that I believe completely I'm smarter than both of these people. You don't have any business telling me. You don't send the sixth grader up to high school to tell the high school senior what they can do and what they can't do. I don't need a nanny, and I particularly don't need a nanny who isn't qualified intellectually to fucking tell me anything. So that's my problem. And once these freedoms start getting taken away from us, Ron, you can't put the toothpaste back into the tube. The time to cut this shit off is right fucking now, because they're coming for our ability to freely say what we want to say. X is one of the few places that's left where you can speak your mind and go against whatever it is that the progressive left woke narrative is without being silenced. And we have to have free speech because, again, even if you're a leftist, even if you are somebody who believes in those things, here's the problem, folks. They may not be coming for what you hold near and dear to your heart today, but once the precedent is set, please don't live your life under the mistaken assumption that they're not going to eventually come for what you believe too. See, that's the thing. It's more conservative, quote unquote, right of center viewpoints today that are the scourge that these people are after. But in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, you may find yourself seeing the same people come for things that you care about, and then what are you going to do then? What are you going to do then? It's going to be too late at that point. And I don't know if it's too late, Ronnie, for us to talk about what I'm tweeting, but let's throw up a tweet before we go to break. I need something to wash this out. Jared, give me whatever you want to. Maybe we're too close to the break to talk about movies, but yeah, let's talk about, okay, we are going to talk about movies. Fuck it. There was Michael Jordan for a second popping up. Michael Jordan won 25 of his last 26 playoff series. We'll talk about that at another time. I tweeted this the other day, and I thought that it was fairly interesting if I might have a moment to pat myself on the back. I said, being totally honest with yourself, what movie do you think that you've watched more than any other movie? And I started, Ron, this is great. Like, after spending the last 2 or 3 minutes complimenting on myself on how I'm more intelligent than these major party nominees for president, I come back and I say, I'm such an intellectual because I taught college for 21 years. The movie that I've seen more than any other is fucking Dazed and Confused. So there's a real intellectual. The Dazed and Confused guy has thoughts on the First Amendment. This is a great postscript.
All right.
It's like, hey, you got to be able to have your free speech, man. All right. Ryan, what's your all-time most watched movie?
I think there's 3 that come to my mind. Top Gun, which we're not going to discuss right now why that one is, and Bronx Tale, but I think it's Shawshank, because if Shawshank, I can start watching Shawshank at any point of the movie when it's on TNT or TBS or AMC or wherever it is. If I happen upon it, I just start watching it from that point. I could have 8 minutes left. I could have almost the entire movie left, and I will start watching it, and I'll be happy.
Yeah, it's great. A couple of my other ones, since you dropped a couple of bonus picks on me, I would say Spies Like Us would be one of mine, which is not even considered to be one of Chevy Chase or Dan Aykroyd's best movies. There's a Roadhouse. Was that Roadhouse? Back to the Future is a great pick. And you can tell how popular some of these are by how many people are liking them. Caddyshack is another one of the all-time great quotable movies. Animal House is another one that I would say, look at that. A lot of these have over 100 likes. In
Breakfast
the
Club.
People
Breakfast Club was huge for me in the 80s and 90s.
Dude, bro. Breakfast Club has got to be in my top 10 easily.
Yeah.
Fast Times at Ridgemont High is another great choice. But yeah, there are some movies that are great, but they're not as rewatchably great.
Correct.
And then there are other movies that are maybe not as good of a movie, but it just goes down so smooth that you can watch it over and over again. If great movie and highly rewatchable movie, if that was a Venn diagram, there would be a lot of overlap, but it's not quite exactly the same thing, is it?
No. And I want to throw another one in there for you that I'll do the same thing that I do with Shawshank. Just anytime I'll just start watching it wherever it's at in the movie is Superbad. Like Superbad is just,
oh my God, dude, 40-year-old virgin. 40-year-old virgin is probably that actually and This Is the End is another one. Have you ever seen This Is the End with Seth Rogen, James Franco, Craig Robinson, Jonah Hill?
You know, you're making me sad right now. You're making me sad right now. You want to know why you're making me sad?
Well,
they don't make comedy movies anymore. No, they don't make comedy movies anymore.
They don't, dude. When you you know, part of it is everybody's so afraid that they're going to offend somebody. Every comedy movie is dumbed down to a level at which they try to appeal to everybody. People ask me, Ron, they say like, well, how did Super 70 Sports catch on and all of this stuff? I got very lucky, man. I saw Dave Chappelle years ago when Chappelle's show was like such a, you know, widespread popular thing out of nowhere on the Comedy Channel back when Dave wasn't, I mean, that's really what made him super famous. He was kind of just a guy before that. He'd been in Half Baked and some other stuff. And somebody asked him, you know, what's the secret to this? And he said, the show is for who it's for. That I didn't make this show to appeal to everybody. I made a show that I thought was funny, that my best friends thought was funny, and that's all we were trying to accomplish. And I'm basically the most surprised person there is that everybody else thought it was funny. And I've always felt the same way about Super 70 Sports. People say, oh, it's so authentic and it's original and you know, all that. And I'm grateful for people saying that. But the reason for that is I just made it for me. If I had made it thinking that it was going to be something, it wouldn't have been nearly as good. I just made it for me and got really lucky that there was something about what I had to say that people connected with.
I kind of feel
so
that.
I never had to fake it, you know, and I never had an editor. So I could just say what I wanted to say. You know, you cuss too much and whatever. I never worried about being politically correct because who did I need, you know, who was I serving besides myself? So if I thought it was funny, even if it had a lot of motherfuckers in it, I tweeted it, you know, but nowadays in comedy, you can't do that at the movies, or people are afraid to do that because the worst thing you can do now in Tim Walz's America is offend somebody unintentionally. And so, you know, movies like The Bad News Bears, Slapshot, there's two really good sports movies for starters that simply would not ever get made today. You couldn't make them because they would have too many things in them that would be considered offensive.
Yeah, man. What I was starting to say is I kind of feel the same way about this show. Like, it's just authentically you. It's certainly authentically me. Like, I don't try to please anybody or answer a way that I think you or the producers or who pays the bills want to hear. I just you ask me a question or ask me for my take and I give it. And I think at some point, everybody who likes this is going to like it. And that's cool. We don't have to try to make it for somebody that's not going to like it. Just we're us. And if you like us, you like us.
Yeah, you can fuck yourself up real quick if you start filling your heads with worry and mostly about what other people are going to think about what you say. Now, I understand why it happens because there's lots of money at stake in a lot of these situations and people's careers, and there's a real
absolutely
impulse that people can have for a variety of reasons to play it close to the vest. But I don't know, man. It's like anything that's actually worth doing, you're probably going to crack some eggs in the process of doing that. Because the truth is, if you don't offend anybody ever, you're probably not saying anything that's worth fucking listening to, is how I look at it.
Hey, OutKick fans on YouTube, if you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button and make your way over to OutKick.com where you can watch the full episode.